Okay, we are online. So welcome to the second week of IT140. So last week we talked about the basic structure of a typical Python program. We learned how to do the input. Like here, we can prompt user with some string so that user know what do you expect. And also the input is going to be a string, and you can convert to another data type like integer, float, and such, right? That's the basic input. And then output is using the print statement. You can use a quotation mark plus the comma separated list to combine the fixed string with some variables. And we talk about briefly what a variable is and how to use a variable to accomplish different tasks. Any question on that? I think you guys have a lot of guys get a 4 mark on the exercise, so I guess it's no problem. You just need to pay attention to details, because I found some student missing a comma or a space. That's normal, right? The first time you always pay attention to detail is one of the requirement for computer scientists or programmers, especially. As you practice more, I guess you will get more used to it. Okay, so that's that. And of course, basic maths. Python is a good calculator per se. You can use Python to do calculation and so on and so forth. Okay. Any question on those things? Basic review, right, for week 1. And Zybooks activities, labs, most of them, you guys are pretty good. We also talked about some fun stuff last time, particularly to simulate the AIs using if statement, branching, and some loops. You're gonna learn that in week 3 and 4, but I guess it's pretty straightforward to understand and read the code. It's like English, so that's why I want to get you some early exposure on those. All right, so for this week, we were focusing on strings, and some basic data structure, sequential data structure like strings, lists, and dictionaries. And we'll talk about more about dictionary and list in the following chapter. So strings are basically a list of characters, right? So for example, you can easily using double quotes or single quotes. In Python, they are the same. You use it as a discretion. If you have like apostrophe in your sentence, use the double quotes so you can differentiate with the apostrophe. Okay, so hi, greetings. These are example strings. You can concatenate them. The plus sign for the string object, it has a special meaning, which is basically put them together. All right, and literally, if you have a space in between, it will honor that using this concatenation or plus sign. Okay, and of course, this multiplication sign for string, we briefly mentioned last week, is basically that concatenate is drawn 3 times, right? 3 times drawn is drawn. And the length function, we'll talk about function in chapter 4, I guess, is basically take a string as an input and return you the length of the string. In this case, the length of string is 4, right? And of course, you can always use Python to verify it. Okay, length of John, and if you run it, don't know what it's doing, but I think there's some extra packages he's trying to install. Okay, anyway, so it should be 4. I will let them install. I can make the Python shell, and it's just length of John, and it's gonna be 4. Okay, all right. So string concatenation. Let me just close this. Oh, you can refer to a single character in the string. the way you do it is basically using the square brackets and with index. The index begin with 0. In computer science, we like to start with 0. So this is something, if you're new, need to be pay attention to. So let me ask you this: if you count from 0 to 9, how many digits you count? 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, all the way to 9, right? It's 10. Yeah, exactly. So it's the n minus the first plus 1. Okay, 10, 9 minus the 0 plus 1 is 10. Okay, so index 1, in this case, John 1 is the second character in the whole sequence, which is the letter O. Okay, you can also refer to a consecutive chunk of string, we call the substring inside the string. So the way you do it is basically like slicing, right? You slice the string into some partitions. And in this case, 1 colon 3 means you are slicing from index 1, second character, all the way to index 3, up to index 3, but not including index 3. So index 3 is not included, but index 1 is included. So in this case, 1 to column 3 is, this is 1, this is 2, this is 3, but it's not included. So all in all, this will end up with, let me see if this is work. Okay, this should be. Oh, I forgot to print. That this is one of the things you need to pay attention. If it's in the source code format, you have to print S4. And if I want to print, let's see, John 1 colon 3, right? So what that will give you, let's see, it will give you letter O, right? Is that clear? 1 colon 3. All right. Now, a little bit more about indexing and slicing. Now, this also applies to list, right? A list is just a list, a collection of numbers. Like I say, list 1 is equal to, let's use square brackets, like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There's a 5 number in that list, right? If I want to access the, let's print, okay, print, what I'm doing, print list 1, and then I'm gonna say 1 colon 3. Let's say what that give you? Okay, that give you 2 and 3. Is that surprising? 2 and 3. It's not, right? It's the second number and third number in that list, and just is the second letter and third letter in that word John, right? Easy enough. You can also, this one also have a third parameter called the, I guess, third parameter called step, right? If I go to 1 to 5, let's see, what will it give to me? 2, 3, 4, 5, right? 2, 3, 4, 5, all right? But if I want to say this one too, okay? So what the third parameter mean? Let me just run it first, and you can figure out yourself. They give you 2 and 4. It skipped the 3. Can you figure that out? What's going on here now? It will skip 1 number, right? So the whole story is the string slicing or list slicing has 3 possible, let's say, what's the correct word for it? Parameters. One is the starting index, one is end index, and third one is a step. All right, you can skip 2. Basically, we're gonna do 2 and then skip 1, and then do the 4. And if you have a 6, of course, sorry, then it will include that. If you go to 1 to 7, right? no. 1 to 6. Hopefully, it will give you 2, 4, 6, right? So it's a step. All right. Is that clear? Right. You can do a lot of things with a substring and list. Okay. And that's just some of it. Now, there's some special indices that unique in Python, and I think it's very convenient. How to address or always print the last character or last element in the list or last character in the string. Do you happen to know? I can just modify this, right? If I do -1, that points to a special position. That's the last character. So let's run it. It will give you n. N is the last character. Okay, so -2 will point to backwards, right? The second character from the end is the h, and so on and so forth. So you can count the letter forward or backwards using this negative indices, and that's really convenient. Okay, and same here. If I want to print it backwards, I can do -1 to 0. Remember, 0 is the first character, -1 is the last one, and everything in between. Now I can print this and skip 2, so it will count backwards. Oh, there is something wrong. Why? Because the step is positive. So from the last one and going to the end, there's nothing after that. So I need to adjust my step to be -2, so I can jump backwards. And here you go, 6, 4, 2. Now, why 1 is not included? Even though if I adjust the step to -1, it will give me everything backwards, right? 6, 5, 4, 3, 2. But the 1 is not included. That's because, remember, the starting and stopping indexes, the stopping index is not included. So what if I want to also include the first character? I can simply do nothing. I just leave it empty. And here it will assume that you want to go all the way to the beginning. So 1 is included. I probably went a little bit too fast on this part. So I want to pause for a second and waiting for your questions or comments. Question or comments on that? Especially the negative one and the step. I think it's probably new to you. I don't know if Zybooks covers that. Probably yes, somewhere buried somewhere, but I just want to emphasize that. Now, when you learn Python basic data structures, you want to basically treat them the similar way. Python does treat those string and lists in some sense similar because they are sequential data structures, right? You can always access the individual element in that data structure using the indices, and those indices obey the same rule. So you can learn them together, which is nice, right? Okay, so now I'm going to teach you how to, or maybe review how to convert a string to a list and vice versa. So what do I mean by that? Okay, so as you can see, the string is just a sequence of characters, right? If I say list2 is, okay, let me assign the, string 1 is John, okay? And list1 is that, list2 is, let's say string 1 dot split. Okay, so let's print list2. Okay, let's just run it. What we got is basically a John, inside a list. So it's a list of a string. Okay, so now if I have a sentence, say, I love Python. Okay, and then I'm gonna just run it again. You can see it will split this sentence into 3 words. I love Python. And I use the space as a delimiter of my words. So the split by default, it has a parameter. It's the same thing as this. So basically a split using this as delimiter, okay? I can, however, use a different delimiter. So if I use hyphen, okay, and I have hyphen in this, let's, for example, in telephone numbers, you will have like 1-800-555-1234, right? This is a telephone number. And if I want to get the area code or last 4 digits of the telephone number, you can do something like this, okay? You can convert to a list of components, 1-800-555-1234, and then you can access each component individually, so you can extract the area code, the country code, the last 4 digits of a phone number, just by split this string into list elements and using hyphen as the delimiter. Any question on that? And then you can print list 2, for example, last element is the last 4 digits of your telephone number or social security number. So this is how to split a string into a list. Now, you may ask why you want to do that. No, the fundamental difference between a string and list is string is immutable and list is mutable. I will repeat again, string is immutable, list is mutable. What does that mean? You cannot change a string once it's done, right? You cannot change a string. I will repeat again, something like, if you do something like a string 1 of, let's say, 0, so the first character, I want to assign to something else like K. And if you run it, it will give you error. It will say, string object does not support item assignment. You cannot mute the string. Now, what you can do is copy that string and concatenate them. So string 2 is equal to, let's say, string 1 to everything. So I have copied string 1's second character all the way to the end, and then the first character I want to make it a different country code, like 2. Actually, string 2 plus that. So now I'm going to print string 2. You can see that on the surface I changed the string, but it's not really not, right? The original string 1 is still 1-800, but I'm just copying that part of the substring and concatenate it with a number, new number, and I'm making a new string. So it's two different strings. So you cannot modify the original string, but you can copy the whole string or part of it and concatenate, or change it and make a new string. That's allowed, right? That's immutable. But for the list, you can easily modify it, right? So say list 2, let's say list 2 -1. So I want to change the last one to 4321. And then I'm going to print print list 2. Let's try it again. Run it. As you can see that this last 4 digits, let me just use string. It's a string, right? Is changed. Okay, so I can easily modify the list without copying the list. So remember, list is mutable. And that's why when you want to modify some data, convert to a list. And then now you may ask, how can I convert that list back to a string? Yes, you can, right? So say I want to convert that back to the list. I modify the phone, and let me say string 2 is, I'm gonna use the hyphen again, join, use the join function, list 2, okay? So I'm going to take a list too, the new list. I'm going to join with hyphen, and I'm going to see what it looks like, string 2. All right, let me just run it. Okay, so you can see for this modify the list, I converted back to a string 1-800-555-4321. It's a new string. So remember, string split with the delimiter will give you a list of strings. And with that list, you can join with the hyphen or delimiter. You can get your string back. Any question on that? If you understand this, you mastered like 65 or 70% of the gist of string and list. The rest is just the practice. All right. Let's see. Feel free to put some comment in the chat window, so I know you are interested. Okay. What else? Let's see. Slicing. I think I give you most of. Okay. I think this is good enough for the slides. I do. Well, there is a YouTube video that I think is very short and very interesting, or it's only 3 minutes and talked about strings. So I recommend you just watch it for 3 minutes. It's how to Python string, and this whole series is pretty good. So I highly recommend, if you are still confused, go and look at this. All right. So I want to go detour a little bit before we dive into the labs, because when you study computer science, the first thing you want to know is what language does a computer speak, right? And sometimes you say, hey, is that Python, C++? No, it's just, this is a language you program with, but the program needs to be compiled or interpreted into something that the machine can understand, which is machine code. And machine, as you know, is made up like transistors. And these days, they used to be like vacuum cubes. The common characteristic of a machine is, electronic machines. They speak something called binary, right? They speak either on and off or true and false. So they use basically base 2 number system to create their world. So what is base 2? Well, here's a short video that I want to introduce you with base 2. So here, example, you have 5 fingers, right? And if you have 5 fingers, how many numbers, maximum number you can count with just one hand? Somebody will say 5, right? Well, that's when each finger only represent one number, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's kind of base 1 is not interesting. Now, if you treat your 5 fingers as base 2s, each finger is a place value, then it's going to be interesting. So your thumb is represent 0, 1. Your one finger, index finger represents a number 2, and the one finger, middle finger represents 4, and this finger represents 8, and the pink finger represents 16. If you do that, you can basically count any numbers from 0 to the power of 5, right? So so that's let's just look at this introduction video. All right, so this is kind of interesting way to represent what binary is. But again, it's a number system that is based on a base 2. And of course, in our daily normal world, we use a base 10, right? Why computer don't use base 10? Well, there's some technical reasons for that. It's easy to find a switch that has 2 states on and off than to find a material that has 10 states, right? So otherwise we can use base 10 for the computer. Let's see if this video will give you a more oh, no sound. Okay, let me share my sound. Somebody says there's no sound. I thought I shared my sound, but no worries. I will fix that right now. Let's see. Come on. Share my audio. Oh, here. Stereo. Yeah, I think I shared. Have you? Can you hear it now? Still nothing. I'm gonna share with you the link so that you can watch yourself. All right, so here you go, binary. And I think it's important to introduce you with that. If you're learning anything, the basic computer science, binary is inevitable, right? All right, so let's go back to our topic, string lists. I don't know. I think that's the thing you need to understand for this Zybook's lab exercise. There's a third data structure called the dictionary. I guess let me just brief mention it. So dictionary is basically a data structure with key and value pairs. So you start with the curly braces, and the key can be anything that is unique. Say like I have like the string 1 and corresponding to the number 1, and then that's the one pair, right? A key and a value with columns separated. And then the second element is like 2 and column 2 and so on. So that's a dictionary, right? To print the first element of dictionary, you can say dict of 1. So instead of using the index is always a number like 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, you can use this key as your indices, and you can print out the value of dish 1. What's going on? Oh, of course, I'm missing that's the name of the dictionary. Silly. So yeah, it's number 1, right? So dict 1 is an actual object dictionary 1, and if you want to print out 3, and then it's 3, right? The other way of getting, now, if you want to print out a key that's not existing in that dictionary, you will get a key error. Say there's no such thing as 4 in that dictionary, right? The way you get away from it, you can use dict.get method. You can get the 4, okay? And if there's no such thing as 4, it will give you none. None means nothing in computer, in Python, right? You can also give them a default value like not found, so that it will print this instead. So you can give them a default value so that it will show you what's going on here, right? And as you can see, the value of the dictionary can be anything. It does not need to be homogeneous. You can have different one, right? You can even use Roman X, like this is 1, right? And this is 2. And then this is 3. So think about dictionary like a lookup table, or you can use that like cache table. So you give a definition, which is the key, and you get you get a key like word, and the explanation is your value, right? A definition of that word. Okay. Now to assign a value to a dictionary is also mutable, so you can actually add it. Dictionary 1. If I say, now you can use square brackets, right? 4 and equal to, like, you assign some value. This is the Roman numeral, right? And then you can print the whole dictionary, okay? And print. So you can see this way I can add a key in it. The key does not need to be pre-existing. If you do this, it will just add this key and so that's the basic how dictionary works. Once you learn the loops, you can loop through the dictionary and do a lot of good things about it. And in our project, we are going to use the dictionary a lot. The dictionary's value can also be a dictionary, right? That makes this so powerful. So you have a nested data structure now. Then the same thing applies to list. you can have a list of list, right? So list one is that, and list two is that. So I'm gonna say list three is basically a combination of list one, comma, list two. I don't know if that works. Let me print list three. Okay, and let's see. Yeah, you can see you have a list of a list, right? Now, if you want to print a specific element in that list, you can say list three of 0. What is list of 3 of 0 means? It's the first list, right? And then if you want to get the last element in list 3 of 0, that's list 3 of 0 minus 1, just like that. It's like a two-dimensional array. Got it? It's like a two-dimensional array. Think about it. There's a lot of 2D games that you can emulate in this data structure, right? Somebody says that computer programming is basically data structure plus algorithms. So data structure, there's a lot of built-in data structure, list, array, and string and dictionary are pretty useful data structure for Python. So you can do this nested, again, indices to point to the individual element in that string. Now, same thing. Let's say, let me do a list of 4, right? List of 4 is equal to, let's say, 2 strings. I love Python, and then comma 1-800 555 1 2 3 4. Okay, so that's the list of strings, right? So now, why I cannot go down? Now I want to print how to print Python in this list of 4. So I have a list of 4. Python is in my first string, so it's 0, right? 0's element is I love Python. And if I want to print the Python, what should I put it here? I should put this the substring of I love Python, right? The substring of Python is basically, let's say 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 to the end. Okay, and then that will probably work. And also I want to print the last 4 digits of that phone number. So I can say list 4 of 1, right? Or minus 1. It's the same thing. It's the last element, which is the string. And then in that string, I want to find a particular character, like the last character or last 4 character. So I can do minus, let's say minus 1, 2, 3, 4, minus 4 to all the way to the end, right? Because minus 1, minus 2, minus 2, minus 4. Okay, let's run it. Hopefully that's correct. Is it? Did it run? Did it? Let's clear it. I don't know. Just clear. It may take some time. Let me just using the shell, just do Python. Oh, it's really slow. Maybe the network is slow. Python, come on. What's going on? It won't accept my typing now. Let me refresh my web browser. Reload. Actually, before I reload, let me copy this just in case. Okay, just in case. And reload. Let me run again. Let's see. Oh, it works now. Python and 1, 2, 3, 4. Right? Get it? Hopefully, you're a master of strings of list slicing and you know, the two-dimensional array thing. I mean, that's the as far as as complete as you can go for chapter 2. All right. So we have some 15 minutes. Let's work on the labs, shall we? Okay. Let me just comment out all these things. All right. Don't worry, I can leave that for you to look at it. Okay. Let me just give you the link so that you can refer to it later. So for this week's lab, there's 3 labs. First one is the name format, right? Let me just copy this and let's just take a look at it, right? So again, this is a comment and I'm going to paste it here. All right, let's read it. So many documents use a specific format, person's name, write a program whose input is first name, middle name, and last name, all in one line, okay? And output is last name, comma, first initial, dot, middle initial, dot, right? And this example, passively do, the output is do, comma, PS. If the input has a form, first name, last name, the output is last name. So there is 2 conditions. If you give them 3 words, it will do this. If you give them 2, that's assume just first name, no middle initial, it will get last name dot first initial. Okay, so that's the 2 case. The reason I want to emphasize this is because you haven't learned the if-else statement yet. Okay, you haven't learned the if-else statement. So, but it sounds like you cannot avoid if-else statement in this case, can't you? You didn't learn about the loops either, so that's not fair, right? So what do you guys think? Anybody have tried this?
Yeah, I tried that. I was getting mad at first, like trying to figure out looking at Stack Overflow and every other resource to find out how I can do this thing without using if-else statement, if that was a trick. But so I just got tired and just used the if-else statement.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, because you do have to, divide this into 2 cases, isn't it? Mm-hmm. Right? So, okay, let's give it a try. First of all, whenever you write a program, you need to have a plan, right? So, so you have to think about what is the input, right? It's a username. Okay, let's give them a variable is input function, right? Enter your full name. Now, in Zybooks, it may not like you to have an input with the prompt because it may screw up their console output. So be careful about this. To be very specific, if they want it, you can give them exactly what they want. If they don't, it's good to do that in your own IDE so that you can test your thing out. But that's the details. Okay. And then remember, it's basically in one line. So you have to split, right? Using the function split to convert it to a list so that you can manipulate them, isn't it? I call it tokens, okay? So username dot split. So by default, it's split by the white spaces, so you will get the 3. Now let me just test it. So see here the thing. As soon as you wrote something, you immediately test it to make sure that this function works, and then you continue. Okay, don't write everything and then test it. Then you don't know where the error come from, right? So I'm gonna write some tests. So the test is basically print tokens. All right. So let's just run it. Okay. So enter full name, Pat, silly, go. All right, so I get a string that's split into a list of 3 words, Pat, silly, do. Now I can use that list and do my job, right? So this is your debugging stuff. So I'm going to comment out for now. So now I get this. So now what? So in this case, I have 3 words, right? So you want to output the last name. Okay, so let's do print. Print is the output, right? And remember, I like the F string. F string is awesome, right? F string is awesome. So inside there is some combination of fixed words and some variables. Okay, so first of all, if I want to get to the last name, right? They all need to start with last name, which is the last element in that list, isn't it? And as I already told you, the last element in that list is what? Okay, of course, you have to use this curly braces for your variables. So it's tokens, which is that list of the last element is -1, right? This is a last element -1. It's always true, doesn't matter if it's a 3-letter or 2-letter. So the last element, last word name is kind of taken care of. Of course, I need a comma, and then I need a space with the middle initial. If it's a 3 words, it's gonna be the first initial dot the middle initial. So that's where things get complicated, right? Right? DOE, comma, and in this case, I want a P and S. So now remember how to get a P from the first element. You can do that, right? So it's tokens of 0, right? Tokens of 0, let's see. Tokens of 0 is the first word, pet, but I only need the first letter, so you can use the first element. So 00 refers to the first letter in the first word, the first name. The first initial is there, and dot last initial is basically tokens. The let's see, first one, right? The first one is, and then of course the first letter. Okay, let's just run it. Sounds like it's the connection is intermittent. Why it's doing this update again? Package configuration. Come on. Anyway, so do you understand this syntax? And your full name. Okay. Pat silly Dill. Dill, comma PS. Sounds like I accomplished the first one, right? However, if I run it again with second Julia Clark. Julia Clark. I get Clark JC, which is not what I want, right? Because there is like only 2 elements in that list. So I do have to differentiate that. So in that case, I'm gonna do if it's a 3 word. So that means the length of the token is 3, right? So length of tokens is equal to 3. Now, it's a difference between equal and equal. Do you guys know that? One is assignment, one is the comparison, right? If it's equal to 3, I do this, right? And else if you do else if length of tokens is equal to 2. So Julia Clark in this case, I'm gonna copy and paste this because it's very similar to that. Okay. However, it's gonna be just the first initial, right? And no last initial. Okay, so that's that. And don't forget the colon. So this is if, else, if. Now, of course, I would consider it's a good practice to consider else. So if it's not .2 and not 3, that means your input has error. Of course, it's not required by the Zybox, but you better say wrong input format. Please try again. So it's a good practice in the real world, right? To just do that. Let's try and your full name. So again, if I say Pat silly still, I get this. And I'm going to run again. And this time I'm going to do Julia Clark. And then you get Clark Drew. And if I run again, this time I get, and I get wrong format. Okay, so that solves the problem. Now, I'm going to tell you another way that you don't need to use if-else statement. Okay, let's just comment this part out. So this is one way of doing it, right? Of course, in Python, there's multiple ways of doing that, but that's require a new concept called list comprehension. I don't think it's called advanced. We'll talk about that later. So what list comprehension means, okay, that's something that's very awesome. So basically, if you want to generate a number 1 to 100, it will be very tedious to type 1, 2, 3 all the way to 100, right? Now you have a better way. So let's say you want to assign a variable x. That's each element in this list. For x in range, I'll give you an example, right? Range, you learned about range before, right? Let's say it's a function. Let's say 1 to 100. So x is in range 1 to 100, and I put every time I have x from this range, I put into one element in that list, and let's say list 1 is equal to that. I'm going to print list 1. Okay, so that's list comprehension in a nutshell. Let's just run it. Okay, you can see 1, 2, 3 all the way to 99, 199 because again, this is not included, so I'm either to 101, and then it will give you 1 to 100. That's list comprehension. So basically, you have a list, and then you have some for loop, and basically every time you satisfy that, you can do this. So let's use this comprehension to solve this problem. First of all, I've given them the last name is always the same, right? Last name is tokens -1. Any question on that? Right? And then the initial list is basically a list comprehension. That list comprehension is, let's say, the first letter in that word, right? In that word. So let's say for each word in tokens. So in tokens, let me say -1. So what does that mean? I want all the tokens other than the last one. The last one is not included. So I don't care the length of tokens. I only want to capture the first couple of names other than the last name, right? Last name is already captured here. So I only need to capture everything else. So for each word in this token, I only need the first initial, so it's word of 0. The word of 0 is initial, right? For each, just like x for x in range, this x now is replaced by the word 0. And for this word in this, I'm only captured the first letter, and that's it. This keyword in means for each word in that list, I'm just getting one at a time, and that's my initial list. And remember, there is a initial is I want to make a string, so I use dot to connect them all using join function. Right? Remember, I told you about the initial list. Okay, you convert from the list. If I make the to a string, and then finally I'm going to print the f string last name and comma initial and dot. Okay, so that's my solution. Wait, initial. Okay, so this is this comprehension. Let's run it. And if I do clock, Julia clock, I get clock J, if I have Pat silly do, no, guess what? I get do PS. So see, I use the list comprehension to capture this, doesn't matter how long, and I use the -1 to always point to the last one, so I don't need to use the length function. So this is another way, if you understand this comprehension, to do this without using if-else statement. Any questions? Comments? Briefly mention the other labs, Concatenation. This is super simple. Well, basically, again, you need to use the split to get to each individual element. The first one is the letter that you want to count with, and then this is the string you want to count. Okay. Hopefully you already. So let me briefly mention that lab 2. Lab 2. So then again, you ask me what's the input, right? What is your input? Input string is equal to input. This time I don't have a prompt. And then input character that I'm gonna search for is the input string, the first element, right? First element. It's just a one string character. And the compare string that compare with is the input string, everything else, right? String slicing, so one column. That's the rest of them. And then you get the print compare string. Count. There is a method called count. You can count how many times the input string is there, and that's it. You can use count method. Of course, you can write your own count function. It will be more exercise for you to try to write a count function, but you can't because you haven't learned about for loop yet. So if once you learn the for loop, you can loop each character. You can do something like for character in string and then do something, right, with that string. But you can't because you can't learn about this. Okay, so this is about lab 2, and for lab 3, I'll just quickly give you some hint. Okay, what else going on? Come on. Okay, lab 3. What's the lab 3 means? Lab 3. Creating password. Okay, so you're gonna create a password out of some function. Let me copy this initial code here and see what's going on. Password, right? That's actually very practical because a lot of websites ask you a password. You can just create the password in Python. Actually, I'm using it daily, just using Python to create a password for me, right? So to satisfy some constraints. So favorite color, you get a favorite color and the pet name. So favorite color, and you also need the pet name and user number, right? So you need these two, these three. And then you use these three and using combination. Password 1 is the favorite color plus. Now you can use string concatenation, right? Hyphen plus the pet name. That's your first password. And then you can print first password. And then password 2 is basically using user number. Now be careful, user number is integer. You want to use the string, so you want to convert to a string, user number, right? You can convert to string that, do that. And then plus, because you have to concatenate favorite color, and plus, again, user number. Again, right? That's the second rule, I guess. That's password 2. And then password 3, I think that's it. password 1, password 2. And you get the idea, right? Just to be careful how to convert the integer to a string and string to an integer and how to concatenate. Okay, so I guess that's pretty much for the Xi books. Any questions? Just go through them. I think if you understand the string list, how to convert string to a list and vice versa, that will be good. And I think that's pretty much it. I'm going to stop recording.